Welcome to the 118th video in our series on Unix tools. Most of you know that most machines today don't come with a real hard disk. Some big servers do, but most of the time you're going to get nvme. And so if you're on an older system that you bought that had hard disks and you decide to, fill those empty NVMe slots on your motherboard, one of the things you're going to need to do is format those, initialize those, all those kinds of things. And so you might start up your browser and do this search. And when you start looking, you're going to say, wow, what do I need? Well, I probably need an open source NVMe SSD management utility for Linux, right? I'm going to need that. Arch Linux usually has pretty good instructions on how to do low-level things, better than the other distributions do. So first, let's take a look at the Arch and see what they say. They tell you you're going to need nvme-cli. Okay, and we look at this, and we're going to say nvme-cli. So that's what we need, for sure. We need nvme-cli. And so you come over here, and they say the command is nvme. Okay, even though the package is nvme-cli, the command is nvme. So I've logged in. I want to type nvme, and it says I don't have it, but I could install it. And there is one. And they tell us it's version 2.8 is what they've got. And they tell us where to go look for it. They say go here if you want to see where the source code is. And so I have sort of cheated and already done that. Here we are. And we can see the current release is 2.10.12. If I was to install... Oh, I am fighting my system here. If I was to install this, I'm installing some antique version. I don't want to use an antique version. I want a 2.10.2. I want the latest, greatest stuff, just like you do. And so we're going to have to build it from source. Okay. First thing we'll have to do is get it. You see I hover over the tar.gz. And at the bottom left in tiny print, it shows the URL. But you can right click and do copy link. And then we can come back to this window. Make sure I'm in my home. And I can wget that link. And you see it has a stupid name. So, we'll rename it. Now let's see what's inside of it. Okay, and you could see they have the name that I chose, even though the download name was stupid. Okay, and it has a top level directory, which is what I wanted to check and make sure of, which means it's safe to unpack. So we can do the same thing, but use X for extract. And we're looking at it, and we're looking at it, and we're looking at it, and the thing that should pop out in your mind right away is this. This is a Meson project. Now, we've looked at using plain make. We've done a few with the configure from Auto Tools. The last couple of videos were about CMake. And here's another one, the Meson build system. So we need to make sure we've got some kind of Meson. We do. And Meson uses Ninja. We know it's there because we use Ninja with the CMake, but you could test it anyway. So we've got some kind of Meson, some kind of Ninja. So those are necessary. Let's go back to the web page and see if they, now that we've downloaded the code, you click here, scroll down to the bottom, and see if they give you anything about build from source. And they say, well, you've got some dependencies. You need libnvme. And you could use JSON-C, and they tell you that without it, all plugins are disabled, and JSON-C output format is disabled. I'm not a fan of JSON. We'll skip that. That's optional. But we have to have libnvme. I'll save you the search. It's pretty easy to find, but here's the libnvme git. And of course, if we're going to use the latest version of nvme-cli, we're going to want the latest version of the library, which is 1.10 from August 2. And so we need to grab that. Look at all those fixes that are not going to be in some old version. So right click on that, copy the link, pop over here, do your wget. And of course, it's going to give some stupid name again, V110, whatever. We'll rename it after we download it. Okay, we'll rename that to libnvme 1.10.tar.gz. Let's take a look at what's inside. And of course, I have guessed the correct name, and it does have a top level directory. We'll scroll all the way to the bottom and make sure they didn't sneak something in on us. And they didn't. They're good people. But you should always check. Even good people make mistakes sometimes. Okay, let's extract it. And since this is a dependency, we have to do it first. nvme-cli needs this library, so we can't build nvme-cli until we build libnvme. And we need to find out, how do I build this thing? So click here and scroll down and look for build from source. They tell you got to have GCC, Ninja, and Meson. We know we have all of those. They tell you, oh, you really ought to have JSON-C, but we're going to skip that. We'll have OpenSSL for sure. And there's all this other stuff that you could have. We're going to skip it for now because I don't want to have a 5-hour video. But to compile with libnvme, you have to configure Meson setup, and then they tell you to have a build directory, and then they say if you want a static library, which we do, we want a static library. Whenever you're working low level with a disk or something, you don't want it to break. And shared libraries, they're wonderful, they save memory, but sometimes they break. And so we would like to build everything static if we can. Okay, so they tell you do this one if you want static, and we want static. Okay, I'm copying that, I'm pasting that, I'm going to do exactly what they said. And here's what it says. It says, oh, I'm going to put everything in user local. That's not what we want. You know we wanted to have it in the home.local. So that's not going to work. They said we did find OpenSSL, but we found Python 3, but we didn't find keyutils, libdbus, or JSON-C. So they kind of, and we did get the static. So we got that. But we didn't get everything we wanted. And we keep looking and we keep looking. And we don't see anything about how we can customize this thing. And so clearly we need more information about Meson. We've got the source downloaded for the packages we want to build. And we've got the tools we have to build them, the GCC, the Meson, the Ninja. But the problem is we don't really know how to use Meson. So, okay. Specify where binaries are, something. Meson build system from mesonbuild.com. Quick start guide. That looks like a winner. Let's open that. And then here's one that's been chopped again. I mean, look at all this room over here. Look at all this room over here. I got tons of room. But Google chops everything now because they want to leave room for some advertisement. Okay? Bummer. Well, Mesa 3D is pretty complicated. Maybe we could look and see how Mesa does it. So first, let's try the quick start guide. Installing with a pack. No. Well, look, it's got these -D things. And you look at those and you say, wow, that's a lot like CMake command line. Yes, it is. But of course, this online help is crap and they don't have a PDF to download. So we're giving up on the Meson official documentation for now. Let's see what this says. They go get Meson, okay. Go get all this stuff. And they've got this stuff. Okay. And so they do Meson configure into some directory and they set some D flags. Okay. And they tell you, look for the Meson options text file at the root of the project. Okay. Do we have one of those? We do right here. Unfortunately, these are all options that are specific to this project. They're not generic Meson options. And so we don't need to change any of this stuff. It's okay. Our problem is at a different level. Our problem is just how do you use Meson? So if we do a man on Meson, we can take a look. And we Meson configure. Use the -D thing like this to set them. But how do you know which ones to set? So we got Meson test, Meson list, Meson install, Meson, and you know, once again, horrible documentation. All of that they said was true, but none of that helps us. So let's try Meson configure help. See if it says anything. Oh, now wait a minute. This has got some stuff on it. So it's too big for one screen. We need to put it somewhere. I'll put it in Bob. You know I love Bob as a file name. So everything's in Bob. We can take a look at Bob. Look at all that stuff. We finally got a list of all these options we can set. So now we need to think hard about which options that we want to set. Usually people talk about a prefix. Do they have a prefix we can set? And we'll set that to home.local, and maybe the rest of it will be all right. We can override the manual directory And then, of course, you can go way down low level and set each one of the directory things, but I don't think we need all that. We want a ninja, so we should say backend ninja. And at this point, we're starting to accumulate some stuff. So we're going to say meson configure prefix equal home local. We want that. And since we're probably going to have a lot, we'll split it across lines like this. And I said we could set the back end. And you notice they don't have an equal here. So maybe we don't need an equal. Maybe we just do it like that. And then we take a look. Optimization. Okay, remember we don't want that level 3 optimization. That tends to cause trouble. Optimization. We'll set that to 2, which should be pretty safe. Warn level. That's for developers and stuff. So I don't think we need to see any warnings. We could set the -D options from that meson options file if we needed to. Let's see if there's anything about color, because man, I hate color. Doesn't seem to be anything about color. Okay. And let's take a look at these options down here. And it says the default is Ninja for the back end. But we specified it explicitly just sort of to remind us in 2 or 3 years from now. Build type. Oh, we probably need that. We want a release build. A release build means that leave the debugging stuff out. And they tell you the default is debug, which will be just giant. Okay. Whether to try static linking before, yeah, we want that. So we want prefer static. Strip will remove debugging, but since we built release, we shouldn't have any debugging. We're going to leave that alone. And we're looking at some of this other stuff, you know, and it's kind of scary because we don't know what any of that stuff is. We're going to leave the rest alone. So we don't need that. This looks like the meson configure we should have run. What did we actually run? We had to specify a directory at the end. So let's go back into Bob. The build directory is the last option. Okay. We do have a build and we don't want it. We want to try again. So we remove that. There's that. We're just going to use a dot. And it says that thing is neither a meson build directory nor a project source directory. Huh? You know, people. We're trying to do the right thing, but it is really confusing. And it says, oh, we didn't do the meson setup. Okay, because I deleted everything. Okay. Check our history. What do we have to do? We did a meson setup like that, and then we should do our meson configure. But we're never going to remember that. Let's put it in here so we can't forget the thing. It still says user local. You know, I'm starting to really get depressed. I said the prefix is home local. I said that. But it's still going for user local. So let's see if we got any kind of messages. Okay, we sourced the what to do file, and the first thing was the meson setup. And then the meson setup did some stuff. And then we did the meson configure. But somehow meson configure didn't get the prefix right, and after that everything else broke. Okay, fine. Meson setup help. And you can see we can set the prefix in the setup. Okay, let's don't get angry. Let's just say this documentation is not very friendly, but there it is, meson setup with the prefix. And then let's put some kind of message in the middle so we know what's going on. Maybe put a blank line first and a blank line after. Okay. Are we ready? Sure we are. Yeah. Okay, we're in home local. So we ran the what to do, and it did some stuff. And here is this. And then the meson configure doesn't appear to have run at all, which is very hard to understand. And we do this meson configure, and it didn't seem to do anything. So let's put another message down here that's a little bit different. And you see nothing happens in the middle. So I don't know what meson configure is doing, and I don't think meson configure knows what it's doing either. And so you think, okay, I've got this meson configure, and it outputs nothing. Nothing is displayed. So let's do a meson configure help again. Meson configure, it does this stuff. It says positional arguments are the directory. It's got these options. But it doesn't say what it does. And it says first you run meson to configure your build, and they say meson setup. It doesn't say meson configure. The meson configure provides a way to configure a meson project from the command line, and it says do this stuff. Okay? And so you start looking at this, and you just, it's totally unclear what we need. Fine. Since the second one didn't seem to do anything, we'll copy all that stuff up there. Now let's check same. This is different. Okay, they both have all the same options. What have we got? It says I'm going to put it in the local stuff. That's what we wanted. OpenSSL is there. Python is there. The other stuff is not. Why don't we have libdbus? I don't know. That's not something we ought to have to build. Oh, tons of stuff. Okay, there's all this libdbus stuff. And you start to think, this is really, really complicated. But there's a libdbus here, and there's a libdbus dev. Okay, and how do we know if these are installed or not? We don't really know. Okay, so there is a libdbus installed in the system. And it seems to hint there's a libdbus dev, but we couldn't find it. We're going to get over it. We're not going to worry about it. We're going to say we've done the setup. To review it, meson configure build. Okay. Aha! That does something. So meson configure build shows all those options in horrible colorized fashion. But it's there. I mean, how do you read this yellow stuff? I don't really know. People who colorize their output need to get spanked because it's just a bad idea. You should just use the normal font and leave it alone. But okay, now we're learning more about what meson configure really supposed to do. Meson configure was just supposed to print our settings. Okay. And you notice somehow it's going through some pagination. We didn't ask for any less, but it did it anyway. Ah, no pager. And we can test that easily. Okay. Yeah, that works. So there doesn't appear to be any easy way to disable color in Meson. Meson has this thing, which defaults to always. Now, how would we ever know? We would never know. So that's the power of Google. Oh, I had it, but my Windows machine requires special keyboard punching when you want to cut and paste, which is always. Now, let's change always to never, right? See what we get. That's still got colorized crap in it. That's still got colorized crap in it. But it seems to be less than we had before. And we got no output at all. Oh, mama. Mama. She just doesn't love me. DB color out never didn't seem to work. This looks like the page that we really wanted in the beginning. So let's come to the top. Find in the page, color, B color out, auto, always, never. Okay, it should work. These are base options. Using -D whatever equal whatever. They cannot be shown because they depend on this stuff. That's just stupid. But that's what it is. We did the right thing. We said color out never, and it just didn't seem to work. We get no output if we say color out equal never. We get no output if we do that. We get output if we do that, though. So maybe we have to do it in the setup, but not in the configure. Fine, let's try that. And you begin to see that Meson has a lot of problems. It's very popular, but it's got a lot of problems. And we could spend forever trying to fight this, but we don't have time for forever. But if you redirect it, you can see when you redirect it, the color goes away. Let's check. The back end is Ninja. The build type is release because we wanted that. Debug is false. Okay. Those are all good things. I said don't worry about strip. Okay. And we wanted the warning level of 0, which we got. Optimization level 2, which we got. Those are things we specified. We said don't do color. Now that didn't seem to work, but we tried. Okay, it's gonna try static pick. Let's take a look at the other stuff. Go to the top, just look for static. Default library is static, like we wanted. Prefer static. which we set is true. Static position independent code is true. They don't have a static pi. This is the best you're going to get. And that's all there is. I think we've done the best we can for configuration. Now it's time to move on to the next step, which was, they say, do a ninja build. That's what they say to do. But in the quick start guide, we can take a look, and they say compiling a Meson project, they want you to use Meson compile. Okay? So these directions aren't quite right. These are for Meson 5 years ago. So we want to use Meson compile. So let's see, Meson compile, what options do we have? Okay, we've got the -j like we had for make to say how many jobs to run. We've got a load average thing which we can use. We've got a verbose which we can use. And then you can pass some arguments to Ninja maybe, but we don't know what to do. And we have the -c to change the directory that we need to do. So let's try Meson compile, change to that build directory. Let's be calm and try 2 jobs and be verbose. Okay, and I'm going to mark that, and then we're going to try it. Finally, we're building some software after 36 minutes, and we don't see any error message. We check. Seems okay. So in our what to do, which we're building, we'll add that. The next step is, how do you install this stuff? You know, they've got a Meson test. And then, oh, look at this. They've got Meson install. Now, this is using a destination directory, but Meson install -c whatever. Do we have a dry run capability, which we were looking for the other day? I don't know. We've got the -c, which we need. We can say, don't rebuild it. You could set the dester. Oh, they have a dry run. They do. Oh, good job. So, Meson install build dry run. Let's try that. Now, where is it putting everything? It's put in home John local, which is my home directory, and everything's going there. So that looks like a win. Now, it gave some whining, but it seems to have installed. You know, that's the best we can do with it. That was what we had. We got a lot of warnings about trying to set things to owner 0 and group 0, which is the root, and we don't want that because we're doing a user install. But again, when something works, take some notes. Okay, we did the dry run, then we did the real one. We seem to be done with this. At least we hope so. So the next thing to do is we need to go in there and figure out about the all this stuff's in the wrong directory. Oops. Okay. Now let's go into nvme CLI 2.10.2, and let's copy the libnvme 110 what to do to here. At least it gives us something to start with. Okay, is there anything specific? I don't think so. That looks pretty good. But, we should take a look at any kind of meson options to see if there's something particular to this project we need to worry about. Okay, documentation. I don't think we need to worry about documentation. We'll use the internet for that. So we'll say that. So we won't build them. We won't install them. I don't know what Draycut is, so I'm going to ignore that. Talking about JSON-C. Remember, we don't have it. Okay. Tests. It already defaults to false, so we don't need to worry about it. Persistent discovery controller's behavior. Ugh. I don't know what it is. Leave it alone. Okay, looks like there's nothing special to set except for those two about the documentation. Everything else should just work, in theory. Oh, we got errors. It says, you need libnvme, but I didn't find it. And so at this point, you have to ask yourself, wait a minute, I spent 40 minutes installing libnvme. I know it's there. But this guy says, I can't find it. Okay, and it's, did it uses package config? And we need to know, did our libnvme actually install some package config file or not? And we don't really know. So it's time to go shopping. So we're going to do an MC of home and home, which seems silly, but that's what we want, because we're going to go take a look in local, and we're going to look in share, and we're looking. I'm not seeing anything. None of that looks good. That's Valgrind stuff. I don't need it. Oh, I got a package config. But I don't see anything about libnvme. Ha! There it is. I've got a package config file for libnvme, which is the thing that we need to let the command line tool see if we want to actually build them. So that file is libnvme.pc. PC's for package config. Now where is that? And it tells at the top of the screen, you can see it's in home, $home. That's what the tilde represents. And then .local, lib, and then this really silly long name, x8664 Linux GNU package config, and somehow we need we need to add this directory that I'm in right now on the right panel. We need to add that somehow to the search that is being made when we attempt to build the NVMe CLI software. And when it looks for libnvme, it needs to look for the package config file in that directory. And it's not doing it. And so at this point, as you scream in frustration, we need to find out about package config and how does that work. So okay, we do have it. It has a ton of help. We're looking for anything about where it looks. And I'm looking, and I'm looking, and I'm not seeing anything. They've got some environment variables, C flags, LD path, libname. Oh, what is this? What is this? Package config path. I'm writing that down on my piece of paper right now. PKG underscore config underscore path, and I've got it in all caps. That's going to be important somehow. I just know it. And so we should probably do a man on package config and then search for that PKG config path and see what it says. List all is a special option that says walk all directories listed in the package config path environmental variable and display information on packages which have registered information there. Whew. List of secondary directories where PC files are looked up. Okay, that is exactly what we need to look at. So, is it set right now? No, there's nothing in there. So, let's see if we can set it. Export, package, config, path equals home dot local lib xf8664 Linux GNU package config, I think is what it was. But before we do that, since it's such a pain, let's make sure that is a directory. It says, oh, you got the name wrong. Got the name wrong. Got the name wrong. That exists. So that exists. That's the one we want. Okay? And we'll put the home in front, so we need this part. Okay, export. Package config path equal home slash that part. And we can just set it because it didn't have a value before. And this is a build time thing, so we won't need to change .profile. It just needs to be here for this build. Okay, we've done that. Let's try the what to do again. Look at that, it's building. It says it did it. It says it installed it. I've got nothing. It keeps telling me I need to apt install it. Well, I'm not happy with that. I'm not happy with that at all. So let's find in the .build. It's there. It's there. is there. And we've got the right version, and we got the right version. So why can't we find it? Take a look at your path. Okay, calm down. Don't get angry. Take a look at your path. And you see we got the local bin, but we don't have the local S bin on our path. Oh. Okay. Well, let's don't get going too far. First thing we need to do is add that thing to our what to do file. Okay? We don't want to forget what we did. And our what to do file is sort of our documentation. And we'll put a little note, update package config path so that nvme-cli can find libnvme at build time. Okay? So we've got a note to tell us all that. And then at the bottom, we need to say something like local S bin, right? That's where it was? Yeah, home local S bin. How would we update our path? Well, we go back to our home profile and we start shopping. This is where we added home local bin. Okay? And that works. So, copy it and put the S in there. That should work. We could try to exec the profile, but that's probably going to break stuff. So let's exit and go back in. Yes! Victory. Now, what was the point of this exercise? The point of this exercise was to show you, starting from nothing, that you could learn to use Meson using a little bit of web help, and it's not that bad. Finding out how to do it is really painful. You saw no single guide had everything we need to know. And there were all sorts of things they just assume you know, like the package config path. And there are some assumptions made by the tools. We didn't get any errors from libnvme, but nvme gave us lots of errors trying to set permissions for the root user. Why do they do that? Well, it turns out to have access to the nvme devices in Linux, you would have to be a root user. So, although we built these tools and we can run them on some, run them to show the version, we couldn't really access a real NVMe device because we wouldn't have root permission. The root user could change the permission on the device for us, and then we could use it. But the goal was not really to learn about NVMe. The goal was to learn about how do you build software, including some library that it needs, that uses Meson. And I think we've accomplished that goal. And if you don't, I'm sorry. I did the best I could. here's basically what we did. Okay, and this is for the NVMe CLI build. You run a Meson setup and you set some flags. These flags are for Meson normally. These -D flags are stuff we set at a lower level, but you can do that. And finally, you need the build directory. And then if you want to see all the settings, not just the ones you set, but the ones that were automatic, that's what Meson configure is about. But it shows that nasty colorized output. And to fix that, you can redirect it to a file and then use your text editor to view it, and the colors are gone. You know, why can't we disable the colors normally? I don't know. They're just, we can't. Okay. Then, this is how you compile, and of course, you change this number 2, to match your machine. This machine it says it has 7, but you have to keep in mind this is a virtual machine, not a real hardware. So I don't want to push it too hard and then have it blow up. When you get ready to install, that's kind of dangerous because it might install into the wrong place, and some of it installs and some of it doesn't, which is the absolute nightmare. Very hard to fix. So you want to do a dry run first and take a look as a human being. And then after you're sure that this software obeys the rules, then you do a build without a dry run and it will install. And we've verified this at this point, so we can comment that out. We know this software does the right thing. And when we're done, it's here. And I warn you, you might have to update your path. So that's the spirit of Meson. It's very similar to CMake, which also had the -D options and the build directory. Okay, and nowhere did I type the word ninja. A lot of guides are just wrong, okay, and they tell you the wrong thing to do. This one was a good example. This guy starts running Ninja. No, don't run Ninja. Okay, Ninja will be run, but it might need some special flags that we don't see. And so you really need to run it with a Meson compile and a Meson install, which is the correct way to use the Meson. And you don't really need Meson configure. That was just so we could see all the settings and double check them. But that you could skip that and everything would still build. Okay. This is another one of those long videos, but the good news is we didn't need 2 videos. We got it done in one. This is not a ready-to-go shell script that you could share, but it's very close. Okay. One of the nice things here was this part doesn't specify any version numbers, only the unpacking. I think you can start with this and use the knowledge you got from our CMake videos, and you could build a full shell script to automate all of this, including the downloads, if you wanted to. And you should, if you're going to install this on many machines. If you're only going to do it on one, maybe you make a file like this and save it somewhere. Okay. I'm going to save that. That's what I wanted to show you, was how to build projects that use the Meson build system. And although they use Ninja in the background, you should never have to type the word Ninja except once right here. Okay, that's the only time. We're done with this video. I hope you come back for the next video. We'll do something completely different. And thank you for listening.